Kia ora tātou, shalom, assalamu alaikum, warm Pacific greetings, namaste, and welcome everyone. Ko Lauren Brenner, aho. I'm a GP, New Zealander, and born in Israel, specialising in family planning, sexual and reproductive health. I would like to mark International Women's Day by acknowledging with much love and care all victims and survivors of sexual violence in Aotearoa, New Zealand and beyond. To those who have passed, those who have healed, and those currently experiencing sexual violence or who are not being supported to recover. I am asking all of us to stand up against sexual violence, no matter who, no matter where, no matter how. I wouldn't have thought it would be that much of an ask, but here we are. One of the most fundamental aspects of the management of sexual trauma is to believe and listen to the victim. We know that sexual violence against women, children, and vulnerable adults is not okay and has deep intergenerational harm and impact. I am here today to bring awareness and to talk about the sexual violence that occurred in Israel on 7th of October, one of the largest coordinated and targeted attacks of sexual violence in recent history. It occurred alongside the murder of over 1,200 individuals and abduction of over 250 men, women and children of different nationalities into Gaza. Several thousand people were wounded in the attacks. This next bit comes with a trigger warning for graphic descriptions of sexual assault. Hamas terrorists raped and mutilated women using premeditated mass sexual violence and torture. Women were shot in their vaginas, breasts and heads. Girls were found dead, stripped naked, hands bound, genitals mutilated and covered with blood and semen, pelvises broken, breasts cut off. Bodies were paraded on the backs of utes to the gleeful cheers of onlookers. Despite all of this, it has taken over 150 days for the UN to recognise what happened on this day. I'm standing here today to speak out against the deafening silence that occurred following October the 7th. I'll say it again. Stand up against sexual violence, no matter who, no matter where, no matter how. Sexual war crimes are common, unfortunately, in global conflicts. I'd like to share the words of a New Zealand colleague who currently counsels family members of victims and survivors in Israel from October the 7th. Believing victims is fundamental to the treatment of PTSD. Dealing with sexual trauma begins with believing victims and survivors. Yet despite this, online vitriol spilled, and in the news media, the victims of October the 7th were not believed. The focus shifted from what happened to other agendas. Victims and survivors became less important and their suffering and trauma was minimised. Even in the face of filmed evidence from the GoPros of the perpetrators, we had these heinous crimes justified as acts of resistance by university professors locally, parroting the widespread denial from their siloed think tanks, doubting the credibility of Israeli witnesses, Israeli women. This undermines all widely accepted guidelines for handling trauma. Excluding a group from a widely agreed consensus on the basis of ethnic, religious or national affiliation is both racist and dangerous. Dealing with trauma begins with believing victims, believing women. The UN reported clear and convincing evidence that sexual violence, rape, sexualised torture, cruel, inhuman and degrading treatment were committed in southern Israel. The report was generated after analysis of over 5,000 photos and over 50 hours of video footage alongside confidential interviews with survivors and eyewitnesses. I can only imagine the challenges in collecting evidence in a war zone from those still experiencing severe mental and physical distress and trauma. And please let us acknowledge here and now the many victims unable to speak out because they are no longer alive to do so. Healing cannot begin before the victim is safe. Based on the information it gathered, the UN mission team had reasonable grounds to believe that such violence was likely to be ongoing against those still held in captivity. I would like to acknowledge the families in New Zealand with relatives still held hostage. Today, I'm speaking out about violence perpetrated against Israeli women and girls on October 7th by Hamas terrorists. I'm standing here to speak out against sexual violence worldwide, no matter where it occurs, be it in Israel, Gaza, right here in Aotearoa, or anywhere else in the world. Honestly, it's a no-brainer. We must all unite in condemning any acts of sexual violence, no matter where they occur in the world. In real time, on screens watched from the comforts of our homes, we are witnessing the savage and brutal reality of war and face the difficulty of having to discern fact from opinion. We are embroiled in a war of words and propaganda, perpetuating an actual war with guns, where alongside military casualties, we also witness the devastating loss and violation of innocent people. Peace-loving people among us on all sides want this war to end. But rape is not resistance. Rape is rape. Today, on International Women's Day, I'm asking each and every one of us to stand up against sexual violence, no matter who, no matter where, no matter how. Ngā mihi, and thank you for listening. Shalom.